When he says it, he means it, and you don't get to bend it and twist it to what you want.
To reach the lost Israelites, the message has to go to everybody, and then the whomsoever wills will come. The ones who he draws will come.
By the way, knowledge meaning what? Having a relationship with the truth. Oh, you learned, and you got tons of information, but have you come into a relationship with truth? What was that? Are we live? We're not live. This is an illusion. The stragglers are coming in. Guys are all straggling. All right, let me know when we're on. We are on? We've been on? Everybody online is going, come on, Rabbi, you're swifter than that. I thought you were just kidding before. All right. Well, welcome to the Tuesday night Torah study. Okay? And so we are very excited to be doing this again on live streaming through YouTube. And I think that's what we'll be doing from now on. I know we've gotten a lot of really good feedback from people who've really enjoyed doing it on the live stream through the YouTube. Okay, can we get, we're going to need Manny eventually. We're going to need you on the chat. Can we get the chat set up so we can get you on the chat? Do we have the camera set up? I mean, the computer over there set up for the chat? It is? Okay, good. All right, so if you're going to read, that's okay. We'll just have you pop off of there for a minute, come up and read, and then you'll go back over to the chat. Okay, excellent. Okay. All right, so we're going to get started here. We got a few more people coming in, and that's fine. You guys can all kind of work your way in here. We're going to get everybody new watches. We do start at 8 o'clock. It's a few seconds after now. We have a couple of minutes. Actually, that clock on the wall doesn't even say it yet. We're going to have to figure out why that one's slow. All right. Awesome. Okay, so for those of you that are here, you know how this works. For those that may be new on the YouTube here on the stream, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some praise and prayer. If there's any praise reports, actually, Manny, you might want to check for any prayer or praise things that come up. Yeah, now, because we're going to do that first. We'll do that first. And then okay, so we'll get that done first, and then we'll read the Torah portion, this week's Torah portion, which is Beha'alotecha. Okay, which is when you light or when you kindle. That way I don't have to ask the question and everybody answer. We'll go ahead and do that Torah portion, then we'll go ahead and have some announcements, and then we'll discuss the Torah portion. Okay? And if you guys who are watching live, you say, well, this looks a little disjointed already. Yes, it does, because we're not used to doing it this way. We're getting used to it. We're going to get a rhythm. We'll get this thing in a rhythm here after a couple weeks. Okay? So this is only our second one in a row that we're doing this way, so that'll be fine. All right, so Nate, why don't you grab the mic in case anybody here has a prayer request or a praise report? Because it looks like the young lady on the end already has her hand up. Okay, Manny can make note of them on the live stream. Okay, turn on HH2, please. On the right. Thank you. It may not actually be powered on, Nate. It is? Okay. Yeah, I'm saying it's not actually on. Hold that button in there with your, yeah, it's not much of a button, but
1, 2.
there you go. All right, so we'll begin with Sarah Beth.
I just wanted to ask a quick prayer for the Bennetts, specifically Heidi. She was really excited and looking forward to coming tonight, and she had a pretty nasty fall, so she's staying home and resting.
Okay, so we could pray for Heidi because she's going through that. Anybody else? Okay, bring it over to Rabbi Tom over here. And for those of you watching, I know you can't see him, but that's okay. Rabbi Tom, go ahead.
Okay, I would like the congregation to pray for several family members, special unspoken, and it's one of them's pretty important, pretty urgent. Thank you.
Okay, so for some family members. Anybody else? Okay, Manny, do you have any? Okay, well, Nate, first you.
Just wanted to, I have a unspoken, and a praise report is that I started my first Sama class today. I taught my first Sama class at the hospital. It went really well, got good reviews, and my boss was actually there and was supervising, and she really liked it, so
Good.
I'm just praying for more.
Excellent. Okay, bring it to Manny. He's got some over there on the stream. Wait, Brianna's got her hand up.
Praise that it's your birthday.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's today? Well, then happy birthday to me. Okay, so, and actually today is more important to me anyway. We have another birthday. One of our members who's over in Thailand, his wife had a son today. I believe he said that his son was named, it was either Justin or Dustin. I think he said Justin. I couldn't hear it real well on the Marco Polo, but he had a boy today, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, I think. It was a good little size there, and he's a little bit early, but all things considered, the baby's doing well, mom's doing well from what I understand, so that's good. Okay, and we get to share a birthday, and I'm honored to do that. Okay, Manny, what do you got?
Okay, so there's a lot of unspoken, so we're going to start at the top, and he'll continue to load in. A lot of unspokens. Walking in Grace says, prayer request, please, for myself and husband, that he will be able to find suitable employment and that he will also be drawn to the faith. Thank you.
Manny, you sound an awful lot like Nate. That's okay. Nate's reading while Manny's scrolling. Go ahead.
Shira, praise Yah. Went to the dentist yesterday and got the last of the mercury out of my mouth. Evangeline. Travel mercies for tomorrow, please. And unspoken, Carrie Silvery. Unspoken, and prayers for all the ladies on the Marco Polo. Claudia Cuoto. Many unspoken. Candace Middleton with excess tiredness, like prayer. Praise report. I guess this is good. This is a good praise report. Wade Reedman, praise report. Rabbi Steve is my teacher. Aubrey and Jeremy Allen. Jacob has been fever-free for 2 days. Levi woke up this morning with a high fever. Please keep Levi in prayer this week. Nancy H. prayer request for upcoming lodging situation. A praise for MTOI for all you do. Norma Silva. Yesterday I gave away $48, and when I got home I had an envelope in my mailbox with a check from my home insurance for $53. Barbara Fox, please pray for my daughter Rebecca. She spent the first 3 months of her life in the hospital and is doing better. Praise Yahweh. She is now 16 months and only weighs 16 pounds, 14 ounces. Needs to grow. Sharon Corley, my mom starts chemo next week. Rick Berry, continued prayers for Kevin Shutt, please. Tom Lasardo, Prayers, my wife Carmen having upper GI test on Friday, and her coworker having stomach issues. Fred Wilson, pray for my wife because she is in Uganda. And Catherine Brown says, prayers for Wayne, please. He is not feeling well. We've got a few more coming. Diane Bloom, praise to Yah that I was able to get my mortgage current. Prayers that the folks who are looking into my car to purchase will follow through with the buy. Christian Weib, prayer for finishing driving school and praise for my doctor appointment on Thursday. Second half for Janice Schreiber, shalom, sorry for being late. First day back at work. This position is very hard on my body. Please pray the pain levels will reduce. And that is all.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for that. And by the way, it's really one of the things that I think is one of the benefits of the Marco Polo is that almost everybody that you mentioned, of the guys that is specifically, I know what they look like and who they are because I see them on the Marco Polos. And so it was kind of cool. Like I feel like I know them a whole lot better than I would, even though these are people that some of them I've never actually met face to face. But when we see each other in those little video chats, I mean, it really seems to have made quite a little difference. Okay, Sarah Beth, you had another one?
Sorry for double dipping. I just finished my training today at work to be a first responder, and just praying for wisdom and that Abba would be with me as I go forward in this new role and making a lot of life-changing decisions for people. Okay,
amen. Let's pray that nobody really gets that hurt or has all kind of emergencies at the factory. That would be really good, yes. I thought that's what you were praying for. Okay, so may you not be needed in any way. Okay, Christina.
So praise first. I'm thankful that I have the job that I have. Not many nurses get to have just one patient, and she's pretty awesome. But I need prayer because my back, I'm in excruciating pain today. I'm going to the chiropractor tomorrow, and I know he'll be able to fix it, but I need my back to get stronger quicker because just the little bit that I'm doing right now is still difficult.
Okay, amen. Say hi for me when you see him. I need to come in and go see him, but... Okay, Nate?
I'm double dipping, but prayer request for all those that have the GI bug that's going around, and praise report for all those who have been getting better, that it's going away. We pray that they continue for healing.
Amen. Amen. Okay, let me just add really urgently, we do have a member out in California, I believe it is, and we're dealing with a young girl who's, I can't even think how old she is, but we're talking about toddler, okay, little. And she's at risk. She's in the hospital. She needs a liver, or she needs hers to start working, okay? And so we've been in counsel about that. And so we're looking for Abba's intervention and his hand on the situation, whether he will either jumpstart her liver to work the way it needs to or provide the necessary one. And of course, to giving the strength and wisdom to the parents to make the decisions that are necessary. But we're talking about a very little one. And so, not that it should matter little ones versus older ones, but there's just something about the little ones that actually obviously pulls our hearts a little bit more. And so, but the parents need a lot of prayer, a lot of strength because I can't even imagine if I had to go through this, what that would be like. I can only imagine how horrible it is. And so, but I will tell you that they are doing as well as can be expected under the circumstances, and they are absolutely committed that no matter what does happen through this whole thing, that they will not allow it to hurt or intervene at all or interfere at all with their relationship with their Creator. They understand that is, the things do go through a process, and even if they can't understand it, that they will still love and worship and praise Yah no matter what. And that's just an incredible thing to hear in the midst of a trial like that. Okay, so let's keep them in prayer. All right, let's go ahead and we'll open in prayer as well as pray for the prayer and the praise. Does somebody want to go ahead and do the prayer for us? Well, did you put the mic down already? Well, go get it. You're going to come back to your spot? That'll be easier. That's fine. I think he has a camera on you anyway. Go ahead and sit there. All right. You can stay standing, okay? Nate's going to open us in prayer and pray for the praise and the prayer requests as well.
Abba, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your divine presence in our lives, that you allow us to be part of your family if we so choose. We thank you that you've given us the opportunity to walk together in this time. We pray, Abba, that as we gather here tonight, as we read your word, as we gather to dig deep into it, that our hearts might be filled with it, that your commandments would be inscribed upon our hearts and our minds, that we might just love to do your will with our utmost. And Abba, we know that you've heard all the prayers, and you like to hear from us what is on our heart, what we're going through. You'd like for us to crawl up on your lap and ask for that permission to just be able to love on our brothers, love on our sisters. We pray for the one that has the liver issue. We pray that right now, Abba, some way you'll just help her to either get that thing working or provide one for her, or him. Her. We thank you and praise you this day, Abba, that you would just allow us to be together. We pray that as we go through this Torah study, that we would just really figure out ways to apply it to our lives as we walk it out. And be with Rabbi and be with all those that are on live stream as they tune in to your word to study and to learn. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay. So we are going to, and we can utilize this one now. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and read this week's Torah portion. I'll mention a few quick announcements in case people are going to have to leave before we finish and they might not be able to be here for announcements. Just reminders that we do have coming up our picnic in Mikvah. Okay, that'll be on July the 14th. And we also have, we're working very diligently to get the Sukkot page up and running with the new registration form. We just had to really juggle a bunch of numbers to adjust to the new property and the way they price things. And so I think we've got that pretty much handled today. So hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have something up and be able to announce that by Shabbat, that we have that going on. Also, I'm not sure what we're going to do yet for Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, which is in July, which will be July 3rd. And so that's going to end up being on a Wednesday night going into Thursday. So, of course, nobody's doing anything July 3rd and July 4th, are they? I don't know. Probably everybody's planning to go out and see fireworks or something. But, you know, we'll have to see how we're going to plan that. So stay tuned for the announcement for Rosh Chodesh coming up here in a couple of weeks. And I think that will cover it for the announcements for now. Don't forget, for the leadership meetings are on this coming Sunday, the 23rd. Okay, we'll have our leadership meetings. All right, so we're into Torah portion, Beha'alotecha, which is when you light or kindle, which is Numbers chapter 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so we're going to cover a couple of chapters here. Some of them are shorter. Okay, as we go through the chapters, so that's why there's more chapters than last time. Last time we had one chapter that was gigantic. It was 89 verses. These are a lot smaller than that. Okay, but we do have, we're going to cover chapters 8 through 12. And this, if you want to read, we have readers sitting up here. I have 10 readings. I'm going to fill the chairs twice. Okay, so we have 10 readings, and we have 5 in there now. We'll fill the chairs twice. What you want to do if you're watching on live stream, if you're here, you'd like to get out a pen, get out your scriptures, follow along, take notes for anything you might want to comment on or anything you might want to ask a question about. There are quite a bunch of things that I've already got in my notes from previous years of doing this, so I already know that we have a lot of things that we can cover in this Torah portion, okay, because I've already got a full page of notes here. So we should be good to go with that. All right, so I'm going to call up each reader one at a time. I'm going to recite a traditional blessing over them and then tell them what verses they're going to read. And then they will read those, and then we will sit down and bring up the next one. And I don't have to ask anybody to remember to turn off their mic, nor do I have to remember to ask anybody to put their hand down. Those are all Adobe Connect things that we had to do, which is going to be different. Okay, so Nate, come on up. We'll start with you. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Nate, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hand. Amen. Okay, Nate's going to start us off in chapter 8 and read verses 1 through 14.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aharon, and say to him, When you ascend to trim the lamps, let the 7 lamps give light in front of the lampstand. And Aharon did so. He set up the lamps to face toward the front of the lampstand, and Yahweh commanded Moshe, as Yahweh commanded Moshe. And this is the work of the lampstand, beaten work of gold. From its base to its blossoms it is beaten work, according to the pattern which Yahweh had shown Moshe. So he made the lampstand. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Take the Levites from among the children of Israel, and you shall cleanse them. And do this to them to cleanse them. Sprinkle water of sin offering on them, and they shall shave all their body, and shall wash their garments and cleanse themselves. And shall take a young bull with its grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil, while you take another young bull as a sin offering. And you shall bring the Levites before the tent of appointment, and you shall assemble all the congregation of the children of Israel. And you shall bring the Levites before Yahweh, and the children of Israel shall lay their hands on the Levites. And Aharon shall wave the Levites before Yahweh, a wave offering from the children of Israel. So shall they be for doing the service of Yahweh. And the Levites shall lay their hands on the heads of the young bulls, and one shall be prepared as a sin offering, and the other as an ascending offering to Yahweh, to make atonement for the Levites. And you shall have the Levites stand before Aharon and his sons, and then wave them a wave offering to Yahweh. Thus you shall separate the Levites from among the children of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Nate. Next up is Manny. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Manny, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, he's going to take us now from verse 15 to the end of chapter 8.
Thank you, sir. Then after that the Levites shall go to do service in the tent of appointment, when you have cleansed them and waved them as a wave offering. For they are given to me from among the children of Israel. I have taken them for myself instead of all who opened the womb, the firstborn of all the children of Israel. For all the firstborn among the children of Israel are mine, both man and beast. On that day I struck all the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, and I set them apart unto myself. And I have taken the Levites instead of all the firstborn of the children of Israel. And I have given the Levites as a gift to Aharon and his sons from among the children of Israel, to do the service of the children of Israel in the tent of appointment, and to make atonement for the children of Israel, that there be no plague among the children of Israel, when the children of Israel come near the set-apart place. Thus Moshe and Aharon and all the congregation of the children of Israel did to the Levites according to all that Yahweh commanded Moshe concerning the Levites, so the children of Israel did to them. And the Levites cleansed themselves and washed their garments, and Aharon waved them a wave offering before Yahweh, and Aharon made atonement for them to cleanse them. Then after the Levites went into do their service in the tent of appointment before Aharon and his sons, as Yahweh commanded Moshe concerning the Levites, so they did to them. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, This applies to the Levites. From 25 years old and above, let him come into the active service in the service of the tent of appointment. And at the age of 50 years, they retire from active service of the service and serve no more. But they shall attend with their brothers in the tent of appointment to guard the duty, but shall do no service. Thus you shall do to the Levites regarding their duties.
Amen. Amen. Okay, next up. Rebbetzin and Julie, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rebbetzin and Julie, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, now we're going to go to chapter 9 and read verses 1 through 12.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai in the first new moon of the 2nd year after they had come out of the land of Mitzrayim, saying, Now let the children of Israel perform the Pesach at its appointed time. On the 14th day of this new moon, between the evenings, perform it at its appointed time. According to all its laws and right rulings, you perform it. And Moshe spoke to the children of Israel to perform the Pesach. So they performed the Pesach on the 14th day of the first new moon between the evenings in the wilderness of Sinai. According to all that Yahweh commanded Moshe, so the children of Israel did. But there were men who were defiled for a being of a man, so that they were not able to perform the Pesach on that day. So they came before Moshe and Aharon that day, and those men said to him, We are defiled for the being of a man. Why are we withheld for bringing near the offering of Yahweh at its appointed time among the children of Israel? And Moshe said to them, Wait, let me hear what Yahweh commands concerning you. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, When any male of you or your generations is unclean for a being, or is far away on a journey, he shall still perform the Pesach of Yahweh. On the 14th day of the 2nd new moon, between the evenings they perform it. With unleavened bread and bitter herbs they eat it. They do not leave of it until morning, and they do not break a bone of it. According to all the laws of the Pesach, they perform it.
Amen, amen. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Brianna. He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Brianna, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Brianna's going to take us now from verse 13 to the end of chapter 9.
But the man who is clean and is not on a journey, and has failed to perform the Pesach, the same being shall be cut off from among his people, because he did not bring the offering of Yahweh, and its an appointed time. That man bears his sin. And when a stranger sojourns among you, then he shall perform the Pesach of Yahweh. He shall do so according to the law of the Pesach, and according to its right ruling. You have one law, both for the stranger and the native of the land. And on the day of that the dwelling place was raised up, the cloud covered the dwelling place, the tent of the witness. From evening until morning it was above the dwelling place, like the appearance of fire. Thus it was continually. The cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of fire by night. And whenever the cloud was taken up from above the tent, after that the children of Israel would depart. And in the place where the cloud dwelt, there the children of Israel would camp. At the mouth of Yahweh the children of Israel departed, and at the command of Yahweh they camped. They remained camped as long as the cloud dwelt above the dwelling place, even when the cloud lingered many days above the dwelling place. The children of Israel guarded the charge of Yahweh and did not depart. And so it was when the cloud was above the dwelling place a few days, according to the mouth of Yahweh they camped, and according to the mouth of Yahweh they would depart. And so it was, when the cloud dwelt only from evening until morning. When the cloud was taken up in the morning, then they departed, whether by day or by night. Whenever the cloud was taken up, they departed. Whether 2 days or a new moon or a year that the cloud lingered above the dwelling place to dwell upon it, the children of Israel camped and did not depart. But when it was taken up, they departed. At the mouth of Yahweh they camped, and at the mouth of Yahweh they departed. They guarded the charge of Yahweh at the mouth of Yahweh by the hand of Moshe.
Amen, amen. Thank you, Brianna. All right. Sarah Beth. He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Sarah Beth, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Sarah Beth's now going to take us into chapter 10 and read verses 1 through 12.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Make 2 silver trumpets for yourself. Make them of beaten work, and you shall use them for calling the congregation and for breaking camp. And when they blow both of them, all the congregation shall meet before you at the door of the tent of meeting. And if they blow one, then the leaders of the heads of the thousands of Israel shall gather to you. And when you blow a shout, the camps that lie on the east side shall depart. And when you blow a shout the second time, then the camps that lie on the south side shall depart. They blow a shout for them to depart. And when the assembly is to be assembled, you blow, but do not shout. And the sons of Aharon, the priests, blow with the trumpets, and it shall be to you for a law forever throughout your generations. And when you go into battle in your land against the enemy that distresses you, then you shall shout with the trumpets, and you shall be remembered before Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall be saved from your enemies. And in the day of your gladness, and in your appointed times, and at the beginning of your months, you shall blow the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over your peace offerings, and they shall be a remembrance for you before your Elohim. I am Yahweh your Elohim. And it came to be in the 20th day of the second month, in the second year, that the cloud was taken up from above the dwelling place of the witness. And the children of Israel departed, setting out from the wilderness of Sinai, and the cloud dwelt on it in the wilderness of Paran.
Amen, amen. Thank you, Sarah Beth. Okay, next up, Michelle. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Michelle, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Michelle's going to take us from verse 13 to verse 24.
Thus they departed the first time, according to the mouth of Yahweh, by the hand of Moshe. And the banner of the camp of the children of Yehudah departed first according to their divisions. And over their army was Nashon, son of Amminadab. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Yissachar was Nathaniel, son of Tusar. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Zebulun was Eliab, son of Helon. And the dwelling place was taken down. And the sons of Gershon and the sons of Merari departed, bearing the dwelling place. And the banner of the camp of Reuben departed according to their divisions, and over their army was Elitzur, son of Yedeur. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Shimon was Shelumiel, son of Seshuradai. Goodness, I got all the names. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Gad was Eliasaph, the son of Deuel, and the Quethites departed bearing the set-apart objects, while the dwelling place was set up before they came. And the banner of the camp of the children of Ephraim departed according to their divisions, and over their army was Elishama, son of Ammihud, and over the army of the tribe of the children of Manasseh was Gamliel, son of Pedahsur. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Benjamin was Abidan, son of Gidoni.
Amen. Not easy, those names. Why couldn't they just been like Bob, Fred? I'm kidding. John, Mike, easy ones. Okay. Rebbetzin Joanne, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rebbetzin Joanne, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from verse 25 to the end of the chapter.
Then the banner of the camp of the children of Dan, which formed the rear guard of all the camps, departed according to their divisions. And over their armies was Azair, son of Amishadite. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Asher was Pagaliel, the son of Okran. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Naphtali was Asher, the son of Ean. Such was the order of the set out of the children of Israel according to their divisions, which they departed. And Moshe said to Hobab, the son of Ruel, the Mitzrayite, Moshe's father-in-law, we are setting out for the place of which Yahweh said, I give to you. Come with us, and we shall do good to you, for Yahweh has spoken good concerning Israel. And he replied to them, I am not going, but I am going to my own land and to my relatives. Then he said, please do not leave us, because you know how we are to camp in the wilderness, and you shall be our eyes. And it shall be, when you go with us, then it shall be that whatever good Yahweh does to us, the same we shall do to you. So they set out from the mountain of Yahweh on the journey of 3 days, and the ark of the covenant of Yahweh went before them for the 3 days' journey to seek out a resting place for them. And the cloud of Yahweh was above them by day, and they went out from the camp. And it came to be, whenever the ark set out, then Moshe said, rise up, O Yahweh, and let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you. And when it rested, he said, return, O Yahweh, to the countless thousands of Israel.
Amen, amen. Okay, thank you, Rebbitz and Joanne. Okay, we've got 3 more readers, and I've got one up here. Owen, come on up. Oh, Rabbi Tom. Okay, we'll let you go first. You want to come on up here to the front? We can get you right up here in front. That's pretty good where you are there, I think. All right, can you get him okay right there? 1, 2, 15. Do you want the big book? I know. You're okay there? Okay. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi Tom, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, we're going to chapter 11 now and read verses 1 through 15.
And it came to be, when the people were as complainers, it was evil in the eyes of Yahweh. And Yahweh heard it, and his displeasure burned. And the fire of Yahweh burned among them, and consumed them in the outskirts of the camp. And the people cried out to Moshe, and Moshe prayed to Yahweh, and the fire died down. Then he called the name of the place Tebirah, because the fire of Yahweh had burned among them. And the mixed multitude who were in their midst lusted greatly. So the children of Israel also wept again and said, who is giving us meat to eat? We remember the fish which we ate without cost in Mitzrayim, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. But now our being is dried up. There is naught to look at but this manna. Now the manna was like coriander seed, and its appearance like the appearance of bdellium. The people went about and gathered it, ground it on millstones, or beat it in the mortar, and cooked it in a pot, and made cakes of it. And its taste was as the taste of cakes baked with oil. And when the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna fell on it. And Moshe heard the people weeping throughout their clans, each man at the door of his tent. And the displeasure of Yahweh burned exceedingly, and in the eyes of Moshe it was evil. So Moshe said to Yahweh, why have you done evil to your servant, and why have I not found favor in your eyes, to put the burden of all these people on me? Was it I who conceived all these people? Was it I who brought them forth, that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom, as the foster father carries a nursing child, to the land which you swore to their fathers? Where am I to get meat to give all these people? for they weep before me, saying, "Give us meat to eat." I am unable to bear all these people alone, because the burden is too heavy for me. And if you are doing this to me, kill me, please kill me, if I have found favor in your eyes, and let me not see my evil.
Amen. Amen. All right, thank you, Rabbi Tom. Okay, next up is Owen. Excuse me. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Owen, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Owen, you're going to take us now from verse 16 to the end of chapter 11.
Then Yahweh said to Moshe, "Gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people, and officers over them, and bring them to the tent of appointment, and let them stand there with you. And I shall come down and speak with you there, and shall take of the Spirit that is on you, and put on them. And they shall bear the burden of the people with you, so that you do not bear it yourself alone. And said to the people, Set yourselves apart for tomorrow, and you shall eat meat, because you have wept in the hearing of Yahweh, saying, Who is giving us meat to eat? For it was well with us in Mitzrayim, and Yahweh shall give you meat, and you shall eat. You are going to eat not 1 day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, nor 10 days, nor 20 days, but for a new moon of days, until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes an abomination to you, because you have rejected Yahweh, who is among you, and have wept before him, saying, Why did we come up out of Mitzrayim? And Moshe said, The people in whose midst I am are 600,000 men on foot, and you have said, I give them meat to eat for a new moon of days. Could flocks and herbs be laid for them to be sufficient for them? Or could all the fish of the sea be gathered together for them to be sufficient for them? And Yahweh said to Moshe, Is the arm of Yahweh too short? Now see whether my word meets you or not. And Moshe went out and spoke to the people the words of Yahweh, and he gathered the 70 men of the elders of the people and placed them around the tent. And Yahweh came down in the cloud and spoke to him, and took of the Spirit that was upon him, and placed the same upon the 70 elders. And it came to be, when the Spirit rested upon them, that they prophesied, but did not continue. However, 2 men had remained in the camp. The name of one was Eldad, and the name of the other Medad. And the Spirit rested upon them. Now they were among those listed, but did not go out to the tent, and they prophesied in the camp. And a young man ran and informed Moshe, and said, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. And Yehoshua, son of Nun, Moshe's assistant from his youth, answered and said, Moshe, my master, forbid them. Then Moshe said to him, Are you jealous for my sake? All the people of Yahweh were prophets, that Yahweh would put his Spirit upon them. And Moshe returned to the camp, both he and the elders of Israel. And a wind went forth from Yahweh, and it brought quail from the sea, and let them fall beside the camp, about a day's journey on this side, and about a day's journey on the other side, all around the camp, and about 2 cubits above the surface of the ground. And the people were up all that day, and all that night, and all the next day, and gathered the quail. He who has least gathered 10 omers, and they spread them out for themselves all around the camp. The meat was still between their teeth before it was chewed, and the wrath of Yahweh burned against the people. And Yahweh struck the people with an exceedingly great plague. And he called the name of that place Kibroth Hattaavah, because there were buried the people who had lusted. From Kibroth Hattaavah, the people set out to Hatzeroth, and they were at Hatzeroth.
Amen. Amen. Okay, Nate, come on up. You look familiar. Didn't we start with you? Oh, he's his twin brother. Okay. All right, so Nate, since I've already said the blessing over you, we're just going to go right to it, and you're going to read us chapter 12.
Sure. Now Miriam and Aharon spoke against Moshe because of the Cushite woman whom he had taken, for he had taken a Cushite woman. And they said, Has Yahweh spoken only through Moshe? Has he not also spoken through us? And Yahweh heard it? And the man Moshe was very humble, more than all the men who were on the face of the earth. And suddenly Yahweh said to Moshe and Aharon and Miriam, You three come out of the tent of appointment. So the three of them came out. And Yahweh came down in the column of cloud and stood in the door of the tent and called Aharon and Miriam. And they both went forward. And he said, Hear now my words. If your prophet is of Yahweh, I make myself known to him in a vision, and I speak to him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moshe. He is trustworthy in all my house. I speak with him mouth to mouth, and plainly, and not in riddles, and he sees the form of Yahweh. So why were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe? And the displeasure of Yahweh burned against them, and he left. And the cloud turned away from above the tent, and look, Miriam was leprous, as white as snow. And Aharon turned toward Miriam, and look, a leper. And Aharon said to Moshe, O my master, please do not hold against us the sin in which we have done foolishly, and in which we have sinned. Please do not let her be as one dead when coming out of its mother's womb, with our flesh half consumed. And Moshe cried out to Yahweh, saying, O El, please heal her, please. And Yahweh said to Moshe, If her father had but spit in her face, would she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp 7 days, and after that let her be readmitted. And Miriam was shut out of the camp 7 days, and the people did not set out until Miriam was readmitted. And afterward the people departed from Hatzeroth, and they camped in the wilderness of Paran.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you to all the readers. Thank you, Nate, for reading twice. Got a little double blessing there. Okay, appreciate that. Let me go ahead and bring this stand back. All right. I just wanted to write one little note here from the last things that were here. What did I want to say? Let's see. I think I have room on my paper. Okay. All right, so that was great. I mean, I really appreciate all the readers. It's always just an experience to hear the word read out loud. I mean, I know we all read the word ourselves at home or we read it in our own private time, but it's just something different about having us gather together and hear the word and take turns and participate in reading the word. And I think it's just a tremendous blessing. And so I was blessed to hear all the readers, and I appreciate you very much. Okay, so just a quick reminder for those of you that may have joined us a little bit later, we do have our picnic and mikvah on July the 14th on that Sunday. We also, and that information is available if you contact us. If you are coming, please let us know you're coming so that we can have that ready. The mikvah declarations are on our website. You may have to go to the search bar and type in mikvah declarations, but you can get them there. I'm going to have to find a better place for them to be, and so we'll have that. Also, for the leadership, all the leaders know that we have our meetings this Sunday, the 23rd, and I think that's going to cover it. Sukkot is coming up And we will be putting out, hopefully this week, we'll be getting up on the website the Sukkot information. I think I got it pretty much wrestled in, trying to figure out all the ways that we got to get this registration form different. Every time we change venues, it's hard to figure out the way they configure the rooms and the way they put their pricing together just makes it a challenge to reset it. Because I'd like it to be very similar each time to the last time, and it just doesn't seem to work out that way. Because each place has certain things they do differently. Okay, so we're hoping that will be on the website sometime this week, because I think I probably have it just about where it needs to be. Now we just have to get it onto a form and have it so it's loadable onto the website. Okay. And by the way, we are going to be expecting over 300 people, so you want to contact us as soon as you get the form and let us know you're coming and all that kind of good stuff. All right, so the discussion portion. Actually, we got to finish the reading portion. There's a blessing. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nachta b'tochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh your Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. Okay. So, wow, we got a lot to cover here. There's all kinds of good stuff in this, every chapter. Chapter 8, 9, 10, 11. I got notes everywhere. And every time we do this, I add more to my notes. So it's going to be really exciting. Let's try to go through this somewhat chronologically. And if you are here, Nate will come around with the mic. So if you raise your hand, and then we'll try to cover a bunch of stuff. And then I'll try to punch in whatever things I feel like I need to with it if anybody doesn't cover it. And let's see if you guys can cover the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, almost 20 things that I wrote down. I'll mark them off as you get them. All right, who's going to go first? Rabbi Tom. Okay, and we're going to give it a second just until the camera can get on you. We're good, Stephen? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Something that occurred to me about the menorah, it had 7 branches, and yet it was all one molded piece. And what I thought of is that here in this congregation, throughout MTOI, almost anywhere, we have different types of people, different personalities, different backgrounds, and according to the color code, even different colors. And yet we should all be one, all molded into one piece, no matter. And we have to look at one another with a degree of tolerance for our idiosyncrasies, for our personalities, because sometimes personalities can clash. But in the menorah, nothing clashed. And if we're in true unity, nothing will clash.
Amen. 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 Let me just point something out because it's sort of connected but not, but because Rabbi Tom brought up the 7-branch menorah. Let's always remember that Scripture lays out a lot of things very clearly and some things it doesn't really say anything about. And so there is no prohibition of making a lampstand with 2 branches, 3 branches, 8 branches, 20 branches, as long as it's not being considered the one that you use in the temple. People made different type of lampstands that keep light in their homes, in their tents, or whatever they did. They kept light in different ways. So just recognize that as long as we're not utilizing it and claiming it's the one that's for the specific purpose that the 7 was for. Because I've had people get all bent out of shape about different things to deal with the menorah. The one for the temple had 7. That one had to have 7, and it had to be made exactly as it was talked about here. And so we have to be just aware that that doesn't mean that people could not have one that had less or more, depending on how they wanted to illuminate their houses. And remember, they didn't have electricity. They didn't turn on light switches. They used lamps. And a lot of times, the lamps, to make them work, the oil lamps, to give more light, they would have multiple branches, and they would have those type of lamps. So that's, here, this is the 7-branch one had a kadosh, or set-apart purpose to be used in this manner, okay? It also, by the way, doesn't say that you can't have a 7-branch one. It says that the one used here had to be 7 branches. So you can have a 7-branch one in your house so that you are reminded of the one in the temple, and it would be a facsimile of some sort, it would be a likeness of some sort, okay? So I just wanted to bring that out because I know when we get to things like Hanukkah, people will really get all messed up and start having cows. And, quite frankly, it's getting a little crowded trying to walk in and out of all the cows that people are having. Everywhere, just terrible. And messy and, all the stuff that comes with cows. So anyway, recognize that having an 8 or 9 branch, so having the menorah does not have 7 branches to it. The Hanukkah, for Hanukkah does not have 7 branches to it. The menorah for the temple did. Totally different purpose for a totally different thing. So it is not against Torah to have a thing that holds candles or light or oil in those days that gives off light to have less or more than 7 branches, as long as the one in the temple was made exactly this way, out of one piece, etc. You could have ones made out of multiple pieces aside from this. Just thought that might be something that somebody might have needed to hear, so I just wanted to bring that out. And no concern, the cows don't bother anybody, so don't worry about it. Okay. Who's next? Okay, bring it to Owen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Just following along with the lampstand, verse 4, when it says, according to the pattern which Yahweh has shown Moshe, so he made a lampstand. And just that phrase, according to the pattern, it reminded me of your teaching, follow the pattern exactly. And how that's very significant in what we do in our lives, in our walk, is because I've been having conversations with people, and they claim to some sort of similarity to what we do, but it's not exactly. And so it just kind of hit me that there are many things that look similar, but they're not the same. And this is our guide right here that we ought to follow in our everyday. And I just wanted to mention that because it just hit me as it was read, according to the pattern that Yahweh showed. And so, thank you.
Amen. Look, it would not surprise me, and there are verses that tell us that the tablets that Moses had were written on both sides. Okay? It wouldn't surprise me if the blueprints for the tabernacle and all of its items are on the tablets, the pattern that was shown. It doesn't say that anywhere in here, so you don't have to agree with that. I'm not saying that it's fact. I'm just simply saying it wouldn't surprise me because Moses was shown a pattern and was able to then give this to the artisans to make the things that were needed to be made. And so I can imagine that the blueprints were available in there in some form, some way, so people could see what they were making and they knew what it needed to look like. Okay? Because somehow, even if Moses had seen it in a vision of some sort, he still was going to have to convey that to the artisans. So either he was going to have to sketch it out or describe it real clearly so they would make it exactly according to the pattern that was shown to him on the mountain. Okay, who's next? Okay, Sarah Beth.
Chapter 8, 19. I don't know how much of this is a question or just something I saw for the first time. That the Levites were given as a gift to Aharon. It wasn't just their duty. It was like the first time, in all the times I've gone through this Torah, I never saw the Levites as that separate, like they're a gift too. They're not just part of a big group, but they were his gift to the Aharon and his sons. And just thankful that you're part of the Melchizedek and you can't retire.
Yes, at the end of chapter 8, it does say age 25 to age 50. And then they're supposed to be retired. See, again, some people ask me, where those verses are. Well, now you just read it. It says, and at age 50 years old, they retire from their active service. Now, of course, someone would say, well, why then are we talking about 30? What about starting at 30? Well, I believe that they were trained for 5 years, from 25 to 30. They did active service till 50. That doesn't mean they didn't do any more service. They weren't doing the active service, the physically offerings, the sacrifices, etc. They were now doing the training of the 25-year-olds. That's just the way I would put it together. It doesn't say that in any detail anywhere. I'm just surmising that from putting the pieces together. It seems to me that the key thing was that they weren't just retired, but from active service. And the service was very physical. There was a lot of things to physically do. And so I believe that the 25-year-olds were trained for a good 5 years to make sure they knew exactly what they were doing when they went into the active service at 30 for the 20 years of service. Okay? All right. Anybody else? Okay, Brianna?
In chapter 8, verse 17, it said that on the day that I struck all the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, I set them apart unto myself. What does that mean exactly?
All right, well, first of all, you get the first prize for picking one of the verses I was going to talk about. Ding, 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 ding. All right, and actually it was more connected to eventually to verse 18. Okay, so what we're talking about here is that this is him explaining why he has taken the Levites instead of the firstborn. Okay, he's taken out the Levites instead of the firstborn of the children. And so he says, let's see, verse 15, then after that the Levites shall go in to do the service in the tent of meeting when they have cleansed them and waved them as a wave offering. For they are the given ones, given to me from among the children of Israel. I have taken them for myself instead of all who open the womb, the firstborn of all the children of Israel. For all the children, all the firstborn among the children of Israel are mine, both man and beast. On the day that I smote all the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, I set them apart to myself. So he set the firstborns apart to himself. It wasn't until Sinai that he chose now to make the change to the Levites. Okay? So the firstborn, he said, on that day when I separated the firstborns out and protected them, they became mine. So there was a redeeming, there was a protection, and so they were bought, they were paid for, so to speak. They belonged to him. Isn't that kind of the way it works with us in Yeshua? Okay, he paid a price. He did something to make it so that we could live. Yahweh did the same thing. He made it so that they could live when the angel of death, so to speak, this thing that came, death that came, would have killed all the firstborns of man and beast. And so so to answer your question, so he's speaking here of, I set them apart, meaning the firstborn, and he's explaining out, but now I've taken the Levites instead. So he's trying to explain how important this is and what the parallels are. These special precious ones who I redeemed and protected and saved in Mitzrayim in Egypt are now being replaced by the Levites who now are holding a position of that nature. Okay, did I answer your question? Okay, good. Next question. Okay, give it back to Nate. Okay, so we got one.
That was actually my
1 out of 20.
My first question, but my question was, I'm trying to figure out why the instead, why he replaced them.
Okay, I think that would be again a speculation, but let's. Do you want to say something? No, okay. So the speculation that I would have is that the firstborns are what's the role of the firstborn? They bear the name of the family. They bear the responsibility of the reputation of the family. And so when they all rebelled and were found playing and drinking and dancing and having a good time and making idols and saying they're Yahweh, hey, this is the one who brought us out, he said that's when they basically embarrassed their families, their tribes, their reputation. And so he now decided to take the Levites, because the Levites stood up when they were given the opportunity. When he said, I need somebody to stand up, who stood up? The Levites did. Okay, so they identified themselves to be the replacements at that point. And so that's why. Does that answer the question?
My concern is, especially with those today that are heavy into replacement theology, that's where my thoughts went with this verse, how they could try to use this as support of that thought process.
Okay, the only reason that they can't use that thought process is because Yahweh tells us, 7,500 times that I've not given up on Israel. It's always about Israel. I will be bringing them back, restoring them, and then they will be... See, you could go there, and that's why he makes sure to tell us, don't go there. That's a reasonable thing to guess. But then that's why every prophet, including Yeshua himself, lets us know it's about the restoration of Israel. Okay, that they will be given that place from being not my people and no mercy to being the children of Israel. the children of living Elohim. And so that process, the restoration that's talked about in Ezekiel 37, the restoration that's talked about in Jeremiah 30, 31, okay? This is, the two sticks, in case someone doesn't know what I'm talking about, the two sticks of Ezekiel 37, the new covenant, the renewing of the covenant in Jeremiah 31 is with the house of Israel. So there is no place for replacement theology because he actually tells us. All the way to Revelation where there's 12 gates with the names of the 12 tribes. There's no Gentile gate. Okay? Not in the New Jerusalem. That work? Okay, good. All right, Rabbi Tom has his hand up. Anybody want to try and figure out point number 2? 1 down, 19 to go. Go ahead.
If I can go again. If I can go back to verses 6 and 7. Is that all right?
Sure.
It says, take the Levites from among the children of Israel, and you shall cleanse them. And do this to them to cleanse them. Sprinkle water of the sin offering on them, and they shall shave all their body and wash their garments and cleanse themselves. So if we apply this to ourselves, I see 3 things here to begin with. We have to go under the water. I know they weren't actually mikvah, but we have to have the water, the mikvah, and then shave their body. If you shave all your body, you kind of come out like a newborn baby, reminiscent of the new man.
Absolutely, I agree.
And then they have to put on clean clothing, give a clean appearance. And then separately it says cleanse themselves. So the first 3 things are the physical, and the cleanse themselves would be the spiritual part. We have to cleanse ourselves spiritually, not just through the mikvah and putting on clean clothes and getting a clean appearance. But we have to.
Okay, I mean, I might prefer simply to say that they had their part. That things are not just going to be done for them, to them.
Right.
It just reminds us that we have our part to play in the cleansing process.
Something they had to be active.
Okay,
yeah.
so whether that's pointing to the physical or the spiritual, and certainly that could be what it's talking about. I mean, I'm not sure there, but I mean, I think the strong reminder is things would be done to them, but they had their part also in the cleansing. Just like we go all the way to Revelation where the bride makes herself ready. Okay, there's a lot more going on than that, but she also has her part to play. Okay, Nate, grab the mic. Okay, who's next? Okay, you can bring it. Do you have Manny? You got some over there? Okay, bring it over to Manny.
Okay. Let's see. Pauline from the UK says Numbers 11, 25, and 29.
Oh, we're jumping way over a bunch of chapters, but that's okay. Numbers 11, 28, and 29. Is that
25.
25.
And 29. I don't know if she means through or
okay.
Each. Would their continued prophesying have undermined Moshe's mantle of authority, and could Moshe have welcomed releasing that responsibility?
Okay, so I want to get to this at some point, so maybe we'll just deal with it now. This is one of my points that I want to talk about. So we have the anointing that is on Moses. This is actually going to be the first place that we're talking about what a prophet is. It starts in chapter 12. In verse 6, he says, if your prophet is Yahweh, that's the word we're talking there. But in chapter 11, verse 16 to 29, the Ruach is put on the 70, okay? And so we have this going on, and then this idea of they prophesied, and of course the problem is, Joshua gets upset. He says, make them stop, okay? And so it says in verse 25, and Yahweh came down in the cloud and spoke to him and took of the spirit that was on him, this is Moses, and placed the same on the 70, and it came to be when the spirit rested upon them that they prophesied but did not continue, okay? However, 2 men who had remained in the camp, the name of one was Eldad and the other named Medad, and the spirit rested on them, and now they were going among those listed, but they did not go out of the tent, and they prophesied in the camp, okay? So what you have going on is, there was a spontaneous, when they first had the Spirit put on them, it's not like they didn't continue forever. There was just this brief moment where they started speaking the word of Yahweh with authority. By the way, that's what definition of prophesying is. They weren't just, being like the oracles of Delphi somehow, speaking like the futures and all these other things. No, they were taking the word of Yahweh and speaking it with authority. This is what prophets do. Because what was Moses doing up to this point? Speaking the word of Yahweh with authority. Okay? Now, then there were the two who were not there, and someone said, hey, these two guys over here. Now, they might not have understood that there was supposed to be more than just the guys right there where Moses was. And so they're all like, hey, there's two guys over here doing it. And of course, Joshua was all like, hey, I'm not happy with anybody doing it. It's only supposed to be you, Moses. Nobody else should be doing what you do. And Moses has to straighten him out and said, look, I wish that all were prophets. Moses answered, are you jealous for my sake? Oh, that all the people of Yahweh were prophets, that Yahweh would put his spirit on them. Verse 29. Okay, so this is really important that we're understanding that this is where we first see any idea of what prophet or prophesying is. This is where it starts. We really get the sense of what that's all about. And so when people talk about this in the mainstream of Christianity, they are not going back to the root or the source of where, there's a rule, well, it's not a rule, but it's referred to as a rule within Jewish studies. Just like when you studied math, there's like this certain rules that you have to apply and understand how math works. Well, one of the rules that they discerned about how the book was written, their book called your scriptures, your Bible, the word of Yahweh, is called the rule of first mention. And so you look for the first place something is mentioned, and usually at that place you get to learn more than any other place what that's all about. There's a lot to be learned in the first place something's talked about. And so this is the first place you're really learning about prophecy and prophesying. Now remember, whatever it is, it's what Moses was doing. Because it's what Moses was doing was then put on these other 70, and then they were doing the same as Moses. And this was called prophesying. And so what had Moses been doing all along? Been speaking the word of Yahweh with authority. And so this is what they started to do as well. And so this is also, a very strong gift to Moses. So that Moses didn't have to be the only one speaking the word with authority. Others could be speaking it as well, and the burden can be shared with others that could do this as well. And so it's important that we see that as well. So when the question then had to do with, well, why did they prophesy and then it didn't continue? Well, it's not that I don't think it's because they didn't continue like forever. It was just one of these spontaneous outbursts, like as soon as they got this power, so to speak, the Spirit came upon them, that they started to do like onto Moses, like Moses did. But then they just, they didn't keep doing it. They just stopped. The moment was over. But I'm sure they continued to speak the word of Yahweh with authority after that. Because this was now the spirit of the anointing that was given to them. Rabbi Tom? Wait, hold on. The mic's coming to you quickly. I didn't know. I was just going to repeat what you said, but go ahead. Start again. Luke chapter 9.
All right, I'm sorry. In Luke chapter 9, Yochanan said, Master, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow us. And Yeshua said, do not forbid him, for he who is not against us is for us. Could we make a fair comparison between Bamidbar and this? Or is that just a bit of a stretch?
I don't know really what to do with the verse in Luke necessarily, so I wouldn't necessarily say that it is connected, but I wouldn't say not. I've always wondered what more fully Yeshua was really talking about in Luke 9. So I really wouldn't know yet what to answer. I'm waiting for the Ruach to kind of give me that answer. So,
okay.
Because that does open up some very complicated doors.
Sorry.
Okay. So no, it's okay. But so my answer is I don't know really what Yeshua was talking about in that one place well enough to say this is definitively what he's referring to. And so it made sense to those guys then. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it's because what's not clear for us is who these other people are. Yeshua kind of it seemed like he knew, well, I assume he knows everything, right? He knew who they were and what they were doing. The people asking the question who were trying to forbid them didn't know them. So he knew what that meant. Just because they're not in this particular little group right here doesn't mean that they're not part of the bigger group. I don't know. So it's opening up a can of, not a can of worms, so to speak, but there's more stuff there that we don't have enough. Let's put it this way. When you took a test, A, B, C, D, and E, and a lot of times E was not enough information? I think we're in E. Okay, this is one of those not enough information deals. Okay, you can bring it back to Manny. All right, hopefully that answered the question for the person that was asking about chapter 11. Okay, next question.
All right, Richard would like to know, chapter 8, 6 through 8, were all the Levites to go through the dedication from birth to the eldest, male and females?
Okay, see, that's another one of those things where it doesn't actually tell us that, but I'm going to make an assumption that this is the 25-year-olds and up, okay? Because they're getting prepared for the work of the temple. So it doesn't actually mention which ones. It does say in chapter 8, I got to turn back to, I was in Luke, so let me go back here. Take the Levites from among the children, and you shall cleanse them. It doesn't say. So, but it does lead us in that chapter to talking about this applies to the Levites from 25 and above, and let him who is into active service. So this is, verse 24. So verse 24, if it's still connected back to the beginning there, it says this applies to. Okay, what we're talking about in all of these things, it could be that this applies to, is why we're figuring out it might be from the 25-year-olds. Okay? Next question.
Dolores would like to know, can you explain 8, 10, and 11, laying of the hands and waving the Levites?
Ding, 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 ding. You get another question on my list. Good job. Okay. Start marking them off here. Mark that one too. All right, because I have in my notes, in verse 11 and verse 13, other places, how did they wave the Levites? Just pick them up and started shaking them up in the air, right? This was not like the first reference to like a mosh pit, where people like going on the top of people's hands and stuff or whatever. Okay, the Levites, I'm guessing that the idea of waving, a wave offering, has to do more with the idea of a presentation, presenting them before Yahweh. Okay? Because that's a really good question. Because, you sit there going, and they waved them before Yahweh. But what does that word wave mean anyway? There must have been some sort of part of this that has to do with how you do it in a way of presenting it to. Okay? Where you're doing a presentation. You do that with a lot of the bread and the wine offerings, the wave offerings. Nate has something to say. Go ahead and hand him the mic real quick.
The thing that was actually my second question. The thing that went through my mind of that is in the military they have what's called a pass and review at a change of command or a presentation, and they have everybody getting for they're dressed in their full dress, whether it's battle or their dress greens, and they present the military, and they do a march. They march in unison like they're presented.
Past the higher ups.
Yeah, it's actually quite neat.
So it's kind of like being waved before. So I'm thinking that it's presentation, that there's some sort of a ceremonial piece to this that we may not have clear because it doesn't explain it to us in the verses, that they're being presented like, here they are, to Yahweh. Here, these are yours, or whatever, okay? So I'm guessing that is what's going on here. Okay, next question. And by the way, Nate's going to claim that each one that is ding, 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 ding was one of his questions. Yeah, so just so you know.
Okay, Oliver and Janet. Chapter 11:11, when Moshe says to Yahweh, why have you done evil to your servant? Is he saying, have you tested me, or why did you allow this evil in my life?
Okay, 11:11. By the way, I didn't mark down the 11:16 to 29. That was one of them as well. We did cover that. Okay, 11:11. So Moshe said to Yahweh, why have you done evil to your servant, and why have I not found favor in your eyes to put the burden of all these people on me? Okay, you got to understand that the way we use in English the word evil compared to the way it works out in the Hebrew, most words in most languages are way more nuanced and flavorful and have varieties of how they can be used and what they mean in the context of how they're used. Okay? And so when something that you're suffering from, some awful, tragic, harsh, whatever thing, you can say, why have you allowed this to happen to me? Why have you put this on me? And then we see the word in English translated evil. Okay, this is not evil. Now, of course, in Moses' understanding, if evil is defined, and again, I'm just sort of speaking as my mouth moves here with the thoughts, but if our definition of evil has been that which Yahweh has purposed for a certain thing now being used or twisted into a different thing, Moses is confused. He says, you've called me and used me to do this, then why have you put me in a position so that it now is this? Because now it looks evil. It looks like it's not how you originally intended it. So Moses is confused. He's saying, look, why have you allowed this to happen to me, your servant? Have I done something wrong? Have I messed something up? Because it didn't seem to Moses that it should work this way. So it started happening, it got to this point, and so Moses is like, what have I done to deserve this, you know? And so hopefully that kind of answers the question. This is one of the sections where I did actually mark in my notes, so there's a little ding, ding, ding for that. But more from the point of view, actually in verse 10, so we'll wait and see. Oh, I'll just throw that in there. You know, verse 10, it says, and Moses heard the people weeping, and it said, and the displeasure of Yahweh burned exceedingly. So we'll get to that in a minute, because and then this displeasure burning exceedingly, and in the eyes of Moses it was evil. Okay? Because he's like trying to understand this whole thing. Why are the people behaving this way? Why is Yahweh all mad? What is going on? I'm trying to handle 2 million crazy people. Okay? So finally he turns and says, one of my favorite lines, look, if I've done anything that pleases you, just kill me. Okay? Please just end this all. Because this is just too much. Okay, so that's what he was going through. And it really wasn't on the point of saying, I don't want it to be like a person who wants to commit suicide, that kind of thing. No, he was like, I want you to kill me before I see my evil, meaning I'm going to kill one of them. So unless you want to see me go ballistic and kill somebody and just, pop my cork, etc., please just put me out before that happens. I don't want to embarrass you. So this wasn't him quitting on life or like some people might do with a suicidal thing, or it's not an escape. From that point of view, he doesn't want to embarrass Yahweh. Because he says, otherwise I'll see my evil. I'll do something I'm not supposed to do. Okay? Well, think of it that way. Evil is things that you are understood to be things that are not supposed to be that way. So Moses is confused. He's saying, Yahweh, I don't understand this. This is not the way I thought this was supposed to be. So he refers to it as evil. Okay? So hopefully that makes some sense. Next question.
All right, next question is, what is the significance of how the tribes were ordered when they were moved from place to place?
I think we covered that a little bit in the previous teachings when we did cover them in the marching order. But we're not going to have time to really try to delve into that. And by the way, that would all be 100% speculation, because it doesn't say. The main thing that you need to know about the camp is that you can see where people were encamped. It allowed for the people that we find out that are doing the rebellions were physically in camp near each other. They didn't have to go very far to find each other. Okay, that's kind of the more significant thing for us to do. By the way, let me just make a statement then, because I was going through a lot of emails today. Some of them are really old. By the way, I do want to apologize to all of you that are waiting for me to respond to your emails. Two things really quickly. One is I've gotten a few people who actually think that I've ignored their email. I don't ignore emails. I don't ever see them, but I don't ignore them. In other words, I get too many of them. And so to respond to them all is impossible. Just like this here with Moses, where he needed that anointing to go on the 70. I could do 70 myself. Okay, I'm not claiming to be Moses, whatever I'm saying, but I could use some help. But it has to be those that will look. With Moses, it says that he took those that were already known as and had the reputation as elders. They were highly respected, and then they were the ones that were given the anointing. So it wasn't just randomly 70 anybody's. Okay? So we're hoping that Abba will separate out and identify and anoint a few people. Now, but bear in mind, one of the things that I've been getting in the emails is that this is it's exhausting for me. So please don't take it wrong. I guess I keep looking that way. I should look this way. Okay, it's exhausting for me. But I know it's still important to you to not recognize and this is where it's exhausting for me, is that you don't seem to recognize the irrelevant, no, that's not fair, the non-consequential in your walk things that you want to know answers to. I get so many emails from people wanting to understand things that absolutely, even if I had the answer and gave it to you, would change nothing except answer the question that's been irritating you. It will not help you walk. It will not help you understand Yeshua better or Yahweh better, but it's just things that you've always wondered. It's like understanding what it means to waive the Levites. I'm not picking on the question. It's in my notes as a question too. But does that help anything at all? No. So please work on your walk. Try to say both words at the same time, so it came out work, whatever. Work on your walk and focus on those questions first. If you have all of that stuff completely figured out and under control, then we ask those other questions. I guess, and I would like to assume, and maybe I'm wrong, that most of you probably will never have time for those other questions. Not because you're so awful, just it's just so much to work on in all of us. Okay, so please bear in mind that if I don't get to your question, if it's one of those questions, I'm looking for the more urgent walk ones, and yours might get bounced to the bottom of the pile until I get there. Just because I know it's a question you've always wondered, but ask the question first. If I get the answer, is it in any way going to help me walk this out? If the answer is no, it's okay, let it go. Let it drop for right now. Work on the walk. Okay, that's very important. Because we're getting questions like that in here, including like the formation. Well, what's the significance of the formation? Why does that matter? Now, I'm not picking on the person who asked the question, because I'm sure lots of us have asked those kind of questions. But I want to use this as a lesson to say, should we ask the question first, why does it matter? It did matter to them, and it mattered to Yahweh because it was important to have them do it. But sometimes you have to be okay with just doing it, not understanding why. It's important because he said so, if nothing else. He's actually the one being in the universe that really gets to say, because I said so. I know parents do that a lot. My parents did it to me. You do it to your children. Because I said so. Because you recognize that they don't need an explanation. They need to just do it because you said so. Because understanding it isn't going to change anything. If anything, it's just going to get you an argument. Okay? So hopefully that answered that question. I'm sorry if I used your question to kind of make a point, but and I've got a bunch of those questions in here that kind of fit that category, because I know people want to know about them and want to ask them, like, how do you waive a Levite? Well, I mean, really, I wrote it down. How did they waive them is my question I wrote here,
I just want to say thank you for saying that, because I've answered so many people that same way, and I don't want them to think that it's me when I'm mirroring what you normally have taught me.
Amen. By the way, all those of you that are getting emails, responses now from Manny, as Manny's trying to handle a lot of the stuff on the website, the Facebook stuff, etc., the social media stuff, realize that he's giving my answers. And if he's not sure what my answer is, he brings it to me and asks me, and then he gives my answer. So please, if you're mad at anybody, be mad at me. Don't be mad at him, because he's getting those responses from me, okay? Okay, because he does every day when I walk in have 2 or 3 for me to say, okay, how would you respond to this? Or he'll text me with it if I'm not here. How would you respond to this? Okay, so he can learn. But then once he's done that, he knows in the future how to respond to whatever the this is. Okay? All right. Next question.
All right. Jonathan Thompson says, chapter 9, verse 10, unclean for a being or far away, still perform Pesach. Rabbi is performing the Pesach for reason unclean can participate. I kind of lost his translation there.
All right, so just recognize that today, because we're not doing the part that the uncleanness would affect, which is the sacrifice, the Passover lamb, we don't need to worry about the second Passover, okay? Now, if there's a reason why, for whatever reason, that you missed the first Passover because you could not be there, there's other reasons to do the second Passover other than being unclean, we certainly could do it for those reasons. But the unclean part is not a part of this at this point, because the unclean part had to do with, remember, the Passover is 2 things. Performing the Passover, if you don't know what I'm talking about, listen to the teaching called Passover Q&A, part 1 and 2. But there's 2 parts. to the Passover. And they're both covered really in Q&A part 1, which is the idea of the performing of the Passover, which was the temple, the lamb, and the offering, okay? And then bringing that lamb back and then roasting it, etc. Then there was a second part, which was the meal, the eating of the Passover. Now, the needing to be to have a status of tameh or tahor affecting things, tameh being unclean, tahor being clean, only affected the temple service part, which was necessary when there was a temple. Since we don't have a temple and can't do that part, and we're just rehearsing, and we're not even going to Jerusalem, which is really where we're supposed to be done, et cetera, until things get restored, it's my opinion that you're okay to do the Passover meal, provided you can get there, provided you're circumcised and covenanted, okay? All the things that are required from that point of view that you can do. Okay, so hopefully that answered his question.
Okay, Lisa, in chapter 8, verse 2 and 3, part of it stating that he wanted the lamps to face toward the front of the lampstands. Is there a significance enough to state anything there?
Okay, that goes back to my answer to the previous question.
I figured.
And my answer is, it's not just I don't know. I have no idea why he said, and Aaron did so, and he set it up so the lamps face toward the front of the lamp. I mean, it had to do with, I'm sure, the way that the room functioned and the way the light had to shine and what the light was shining on, if we had the layout of the space, okay?
All right, Carrie would like to know, when they were complaining about leaks, etc., they were doing grain offerings and sin offerings, so why did they not have meat? They had flocks for sacrifices, correct?
Right, they did have the flocks for the sacrifices, but you got to remember that the animals provided lots of stuff, okay? The sheep provided the wool, okay? The goats provided milk. I mean, if you started eating them, you wouldn't have those other things. So they looked at the animals for their production of different things and their different needs and different uses, and they knew if they started eating them, they would lose all that. All right? Because they generally didn't have cows, they had the goats, and goat's milk is, apparently is much better for you actually than cow's milk. Okay? So they had the goat milk, and they had the sheep for the wool, etc. They were not wanting to lose all of that. So hopefully that answers that question. Good question. That one, I mean, that's a question that I can see. It doesn't really affect your walk today, but I think that's a simple enough one to say, well, wait a minute. How come they were whining for meat? Okay, because they didn't want to eat what they had. They needed it for other reasons. Okay? Nate, did you want to say something about that? Okay.
I have in my notes concerning that verse. One was at 11 where it talked about the fire consumed the outskirts of the camp. That was a question about that. But concerning what she was just mentioning, I put in my notes here, let's not neglect the manna that Abba is providing at this time. And I was reflecting about how we keep hearing the word, I want to go deeper. I need more meat to what the message is because it's not enough. Rather than looking at the manna that we're being fed on how to get from point A to point B with just our walk.
Amen.
Let's not just keep chasing after the meat. Otherwise, Abba will give it to us, and it'll be coming out of our noses.
Yeah, that wasn't pretty, no. Not really pretty imagery. Well, let's talk about that for a minute, I guess, because, it came up, and maybe this will address some people's questions anyway. Look, you got a problem in chapter 11. Of course, we skipped over all the things I had in... I did have the second Passover information. That was one of the ones on my list. But we skipped a lot of other things in chapters 8 and 9 and 10, but we'll get to 11. Okay. 11 is actually the biggest one and the most important one in a lot of ways. Because 11 addresses the problem of complaining. Okay? Anybody own that t-shirt? Because it came to be when the people were as complainers, it was evil in the ears of Yahweh. In other words, it was something that should not be. So this is really important. So he says complaining equals evil in his ears. And Yahweh heard it and his displeasure burned. And this is very important. And the fire of Yahweh burned among them and consumed those in the outskirts of the camp. Now, look, this thing about the complaining and the whining, this is why, Moses says, look, if I've done anything that pleases you, just please kill me. What we see going on here is that they've had the manna. Okay, what's the manna? Manna in the Hebrew simply means mana, means what's this? I mean, you know how you have something, the whatchamacallit. Well, that would be like a phrase we would use today, so that's what manna was. It was what's this? They didn't know what it was. It's just the what's this. We get this what's this and we eat it every day. All right? And so this complaining thing is a real problem. Now notice that this is kind of some of the keys that's going on here. In chapter 11 and verse 10, I read this earlier, but I want to read it again. The displeasure of Yahweh burned exceedingly. Why? Why was he so upset with the people? Because they didn't have the ability to say Dayenu. Okay, to appreciate what they had and say, hey, if he didn't do anything more for us, it would be enough. They were absolutely not appreciating. He had just brought them out of slavery, created all kinds of miracles in the bringing them out. He did all kinds of miracles after they came out, brought them to Sinai through miracles, did miracles at Sinai, and these people still don't appreciate it. Complain, complain, complain. I used to actually, for these Torah portions, I have a subtitle, whine, whine, complain, complain. Because that's what they were doing. But I want us to notice something really powerful. These are all the ones that I kind of put here in my verses, okay? By the way, the reason why he was complaining, you can see this in verse 20. I wrote it in my notes here today. I wrote this. Verse 20, it says, at the end of it, he goes, let's see, because you have rejected Yahweh who is among you. He says, for a month of days until he comes out of your nostrils and becomes an abomination to you, because. This is why he does this to them. Because you have rejected. When you're complaining, you're rejecting Yahweh. That's the way he feels about it. Whew. Think about it. He said, because you have rejected Yahweh who is among you and have wept before him, saying, why did we come out of Egypt? Why did we do all of that? You're rejecting Yahweh. Why did you bring me out of the church? Why did I take the red pill, not the blue pill? Why? My children don't talk to me anymore. None of my friends will talk to me. Everybody's mad at me, blah, blah, blah. Were you really so happy before? No, you weren't. You were lost. You were miserable. But you're complaining because it's not perfect. It's not the way you think perfect is. You're still living in a messed up world in the dispersion. And then he says in verse 34, okay, he said, then he had called the name of the place Kibroth Hattawa. Why? Because they had buried the people who had lusted. So the complaining was because of the lusting. So why was it all evil in his sight? Because the people were, I want, me, more, blah, 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 lusting after things and not trusting in Yahweh. See, when you don't trust him, you're rejecting him. They didn't trust him when they were thirsty. They didn't trust him when they were hungry. They didn't trust him when he said, go into the land. Are we not the same as these Israelites? Or are we so much better? Are we trusting him? Are you? Because otherwise you're as evil complainers. And by the way, as ministry, guess what I get a lot of times? I get counsel sessions and phone calls and emails from people complaining. Not appreciating all you have. You know what? I think all of you, at least the ones that are in, quote unquote, industrialized nations, whatever, should go spend a little bit of time in South America or Africa or other parts of the world where they've got India, parts of China, etc., where they live not like you do. They have dirt floors, and they've got maybe an outdoor outhouse, and they've got no indoor plumbing, and they don't have electricity, and you have no idea how spoiled you are. Because you're frustrated because you can't afford the latest whatever that you want. And maybe you're mad because you got to Starbucks and they were out of whatever coffee you wanted. I don't even know if that happens, but you know what I'm saying. You're so spoiled. And we whine and complain because that's really a big thing. And so, let's see, there's another verse I wanted to connect to this. Oh, and so then this is what you need to really pay attention to. He gave the people what they wanted and then turned it into a plague. And then it became a plague. So be careful what you scream and whine and complain about, because he gave them what they wanted first. Then it became the plague. Because then he says here in verse 32, and the people were up all that day and all that night and the next day, because what did he give them? He gave them a day's journey worth of quail. I mean, quail on the ground, so much that you could walk a whole day's journey that's how big it was. On two sides of the camp. And he said they gathered it that day, the next day, and everything. He said here was the least that gathered 10 omers of it, and they spread them out for themselves all around the camp, and the meat was still between their teeth before it was chewed. And then the wrath of Yahweh burned against the people, and Yahweh smote the people with an exceeding great plague. Don't think just because you got what you asked for that things are good. Because some of you say, well, I asked for this and I got it, and then why do things go bad? Because maybe you asked inappropriately. Maybe you asked without appreciating what you already had. That's not to say you shouldn't ask, but think about where you're asking from. Is it coming from a need, whine, complain, or is it a real need? Is it a want that's masquerading as a need? That's what was going on here. A want masquerading as a need. This goes back to something I haven't talked about in a while, but I used to talk about it all the time, which is our human problem with a wants-needs disconnect. Anything you want, you think you need. And people use that language when I talk to them. Well, I need this and I need that. Well, do you need it or do you want it? We don't need much. We want a lot. But we're spoiled. You don't need the big house or the new car or the new TV or the latest iPhone or whatever. I mean, we don't need so many things. We need shelter. We need food. We need clothing. We don't need a whole lot. Okay? But yet we whine and complain. So just realize that he gave them the plague after he gave them what they asked for, what they wanted, instead of trusting him to give them what they needed. Very important. Okay, next question, Manny.
Pete Lamb has a question. In 12:10, why was Miriam stricken and not Aaron?
Okay, I wanted to get into some stuff here in chapter 12, so that's good. Let's deal with some of the stuff leading into verse 10 first, so we can understand what's going on, and then we'll kind of hopefully get that unraveled. Okay? The first thing starts off in verse 2, where they said, has Yahweh spoken only through Moses? Has he not also spoken through us? Okay, we can actually fall into this same trap. What's going on here? Who is the anointed appointed? Moshe. He goes and anoints Aaron. Miriam's not anointed at all. Not picking on her per se, but she's not called to do anything. She just happens to be his sister. But Aaron gets actually anointed and appointed by Moses. But the anointed appointed the higher rank, the Melchizedekian priest, Moses, who does the immersing and anointing and all the things he does to Aaron and his sons, is being disrespected, because this goes back to, well, we don't need a teacher, we don't need a leader. Doesn't he talk to all of us? This can be extrapolated into the whole Ruach thing. Don't we all have the Ruach? We don't need anybody. Doesn't he all, why do we don't just have to listen to Rabbi Steve or some other teacher, blah, blah, blah? Well, look at how well that went for these guys. Okay? Verse 6. It says, hear now my words. If your prophet is of Yahweh, I make myself known to him in a vision, and I speak to him in a dream. The prophet has a role to speak to the people the word of Yahweh with authority, and he is the one who is given the vision. Now, of course, the point of this section is to say, that's what I do with a prophet. Moses is even greater. I talk to him face to face, mouth to mouth. Okay, I don't talk to him with a vision. I talk to him directly. No parables, no imagery, no guesswork. But still, understand, it's the anointed, appointed that's given the vision. He's saying, basically he said to them, I didn't give you a vision, Aaron, Miriam. I gave it to Moshe. Why are you rebelling against? This is the whole problem. Everybody wants what they don't have and that somebody else has because they think, oh, it'd be great if I had that. So why you? Why? No reason. He picked. You got a problem with it, take it up with him. Why are you picking? They were picking on Moses. Moses didn't anoint himself. He didn't appoint himself. You have a problem with the anointed, appointed leadership you find yourself with? Take it to Yahweh. Don't take it to anybody else. He put that person in place, not you. And not any, hopefully, if he is anointed, appointed, he didn't put himself in that place. We got plenty of those out there too. That's for you to discern and pray about. If they're self-appointed, why are you following them? Why are you being under that leadership at all? If they're Yah appointed and you have a problem with them, take it up with Yah. He put them there. Okay? They didn't do this the right way. Okay? Okay. Then we get to verse 8. And he says, so why, knowing all these things, why were you not afraid to speak against my servant? If whoever you're dealing with is Yah's servant, now we could stretch this and say, okay, well, it's specifically just talking about Moses. Maybe it is. Maybe that's a fair assessment. He's just talking about Moshe here. But he did extrapolate it out also to the prophets. And we're told that there are prophets today. It's one of the roles. Not prophets like you see, writing the books like Ezekiel and Hosea and Jeremiah and all that, but we do have people who speak the word of Yahweh with authority. Because remember, there hadn't been any prophets for a long time. When Yeshua showed up, and then somebody said, wow, he speaks differently. He speaks like one having authority. You remember that verse, right? In the Gospels. So they're recognizing that he was a prophet. Not necessarily a prolific one writing books. He had other people write books about him. But a prophet nonetheless. But I think we need to really pray about, before we do things like we do, why are we not afraid? We had a lady one time that absolutely went ballistic about a decision I had made that had nothing to do with halakha, had to do with some secular stuff in the building use that we had a building to use, that I had made a decision that we weren't going to use the building to do certain things because we really didn't have permission from the people we were renting from. And she was just absolutely going nuts, ballistic, mouthing off and everything else. Finally, she was in a classroom getting her stuff together. My wife heard her. She said, you need to ask yourself, if my husband is anointed and appointed, you could be bringing a lot of trouble on yourself. You may want to rethink, what's coming out of your mouth. But she wasn't saying that to shut her down. She knew that wouldn't work, just to say, I'm trying to help you here. Now, of course, if I'm not, then there's no foul, no harm, no problem. But you know what? Yahweh still watches how you treat those that are in a position, because how you treat them is how you might treat him, because authority is authority. That's why you should not be picking on your president or your senator or your governor, whoever it is in authority that you pick on. You don't have to like them. You don't have to agree with them. Don't shame them. Don't rebel against them in a public way like that and go and speak against them. There have been lots of presidents I didn't like. You did not find me out there posting all over the place against them. Okay? By the way, the ones I did like, you didn't find me posting for them either. I don't need to speak for them, and I don't need to speak against them. But I said, you got to ask yourself that question. Why are you not afraid to speak against my servant? I think it's big. It's a serious question. Do you want to say something, Nate? Okay, you got your hand up.
This was significant to me in verse 1, where it says that because of the Cushite woman whom he had taken, for he had taken a Cushite woman. I was getting out of that we need to be careful that we don't speak against leadership's wives as well. They weren't speaking directly against her, but their issue was with his wife for some reason or another. It's only speculation why. We need to respect and honor that position of the Rebbetzin as well as
No, I really appreciate that. And by the way, from a respect point of view, realize this. Until you've been the wife of, okay, wait, bring it over here because another Rebbetzin wants the mic. Until you've been the wife of a pastor, a rabbi, a leader, or whatever, you don't realize just how much people are going to give you grief trying to get to you or get to the husband through you. Because people have basically cornered her in bathrooms, cornered her in kitchens, because they want to give her grief about me because they're not willing to go and actually deal with me directly. For whatever reason, they're intimidated, afraid, whatever it is, so they want to go around and get to me through her. So Rebbitzins have a really tough job because they have a lot of people who will try to manipulate, well, they don't succeed, I promise you, with either Rebbitzin Julie, my wife, or Rebbitzin Joanne. That would be a big waste of time. But, okay, all right. But nonetheless, it's exhausting to them. They don't appreciate it, and they can see that people are putting them in a hard position because they're trying to get them to actually be against their own husbands. And not only the leader of the group, but their husbands. Because their husband is the leader. Okay, Rebbitzin Joanne?
Okay, Rabbi, this is my thought on this, so you can correct me. This first verse, now Miriam and Aharon spoke against Moshe because of the Cushite woman whom he had taken, for he had taken a Cushite woman. I think that the whole thing stems down to, because it says Miriam's name first, that Miriam got jealous because he took a Cushite woman, and she may not have liked her. Apparently she didn't. And she started going off on Aharon, and I can't really picture him saying much because that's how brothers are. They just listen. I have 5. So he was just listening, and I think over there where she became a leper is because she instigated it. And that's just the way I see it. She instigated the whole thing, and that's what you do with your children. If they start trouble with another child, you usually get down on the one that's starting the trouble more than the other one, and that's just how I see it.
And I would agree. And now your husband wants to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if somebody would ever corner Joanne and start an issue with her or something, that they would find out that when she opens her mouth, her mother comes out. No.
Be very afraid. Okay.
Very afraid.
Okay. Okay. And by the way, both ladies normally come off and they are very sweet and gentle and etc., but you do not want to put them in a place where they are needing to stand up about Yahweh, Torah, or the leadership, because then you will find a very strong woman in front of you that's going to tell you straight out what you're doing is not right. Okay? So that's very important that you understand that. By the way, so I do want to address the question, which was ultimately, why was Miriam the one? And I would say that I believe that the Rebbitzin Joanne had it probably right. Look, Aaron has already shown himself to be a strong, spineless man. Okay, because he was manipulated and maneuvered and made to do things he didn't really want to do by everybody at Sinai. Okay, so I don't think it probably would have taken a whole lot for Miriam to go, get over here, Aaron. We don't like what your brother's doing here. Let's go get him. And it says, they said. I don't know if the they said really is the they said. Aaron might have just been standing there. She was doing all the talking, but they were together. That's all speculation, though. But certainly we could see that Aaron does not have a good track record of standing up and saying, no, we're going to do this differently, etc. So I don't think that Aaron is not held accountable here for, the fact that he was leading. Of course, you notice that Aaron showed a lot of fear, though. He's like saying, whoa, 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 because he knows he's culpable and he's part of this, and he's probably wondering what's going to happen to me next. Okay, because he's like, then does the right thing and says, please, don't let her be consumed. Okay, Sarah Beth.
I actually had a couple, but I think it's going backwards if that's okay, but it kind of fits.
That's okay. Okay, so wait, so did we finish? So that hopefully we finished for the lady, whoever it is that asked that question about Miriam. Okay, next, go ahead. You have another question?
Yes.
Okay.
well, I had 3, but you very soundly hit the one in chapter 11. Thank you. In advance, or you answered it in advance of me asking. Somebody else beat me to it. Anyway, chapter 9, when they come to Moshe about the second Passover, it just really struck me more for following Moshe's example, but then it also fits nicely and ties into how it refers to in chapter 12, I believe it is, that Moshe was so humble. When they ask, Moshe doesn't just try to give a flip answer off the top of his head. He says, well, wait, I don't know, let me find out. And how often we he of all people could have had the authority having their relationship, but he said, no, I don't know, let me find out, and to follow that example.
Right, and let's take that example to its fullness, which is when you don't know, you go to the next one up the chain. In this case, Moses only had one place to go, to Yahweh. But when you don't know, you go to the next one. Because you see that in Deuteronomy 17. When the matter comes up that you don't know what to do, you go to the next level up the chain. Okay? Go ahead.
And then also chapter 9, he kind of spends a lot of time on the whole cloud moving. Mm-hmm. How can we apply that today?
Ding, 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 ding. Okay, that was one of my other ones here. Good job. Okay. She's all excited now. All right, so the key thing here with the cloud moving is to recognize that you need to recognize where the cloud is. Okay? Is the cloud, in other words, is Yahweh where you're going? Is Yahweh in the place that you meet? Is there an anointing there? Is the presence there? And I don't mean this in a charismatic way. I mean, can you see his hand and his work being done? If it's not, you need to go find it where it is. If it was, I've been places where it was and then it wasn't because people started going in a wrong direction. So the cloud moves, you move. So the lesson for today is cloud moves, we move. First lesson, though, is find the cloud. Okay, find where it is. All right? And not literally here in Cleveland. We have our own ministry here. Okay. Okay? All right, so that's an inside joke for those here. Okay, but you want to see where is he doing his thing? Where is that? Okay, because a lot of people are hanging out in congregations. Listen, they call me on a regular enough basis. And they say, should I stay at the congregation I go to? And they describe a place where clearly the cloud is not there. The anointing's not there. The teaching's not there. They're in some sort of a mixed mess. Whether it's messed, with all kinds of, we can go any which way you want to go with it. Usually it's a really Christianized version of Torah observance of some form. Okay? Or it's very Jewish, Talmudically, halachically, traditionally entrenched, and it's missing the point on a lot of things. Whatever it is, it's not what it needs to be. And then they'll ask me the question, well, should I stay? Should I go? Well, is the cloud there, really, I should say? Has it moved? Was it ever there? Then maybe you need to move. And that's why I think a lot of people are moving here. I mean, I'm not saying that to have a pride or an ego or anything, but maybe that's why they're coming, because they think this is where they see the cloud. Okay? And so they come here for that. All right? So just that the metaphor for us today is find it, and if it moves, move. If it's not where you are, find it and move to it. Okay? And that really, I think, is what we can see today. All right, do you have more over there? Does the mic? Oh, Brianna has a question over here. Okay, go ahead. And we're running out of time, and I'm going to have to shotgun through 2 or 3 things I still want to hit. But go ahead.
It said, in chapter 11, verse 20, until
Ding,
it
ding,
comes
ding, ding,
out
ding,
of your
ding, ding.
nostrils and becomes an abomination. Is that one of them?
It was.
Yay.
Okay, but it was for I covered it in the other parts where I did say about chapter 11, but it was actually written here as 11:20. I didn't actually write a comment next to it, I just wrote the verse.
Yeah, but you didn't say abomination.
Okay? But that's because you need to realize it was an abomination to him in the first place. So then it becomes an abomination to you. Okay? So that's the connection there. So good point. All right? You want to bring that up? You have a comment?
Proverbs 6.
Proverbs 6. 6 matters that are... Yahweh hates 6. Proverbs 6:16. 6 matters Yahweh hates. 7th is an abomination. Okay? All right, so, but that's not really connected to this because it had to do with just complaining and then wanting to eat too much, but the other one is causing division. This is just straight out selfish rebellion. Okay, Michelle?
Let's see. On back to 12, we went over the speaking against the anointed and appointed, which it made me, just real quick, it made me chuckle because I was thinking how, we consider you our anointed appointed, and so if anyone speaks against you, they would have to deal with Yahweh. And when Manny made a comment about, don't be upset with me, I'm answering what Rabbi says, I'm like, okay, well, you can't be mad at him either because he's serving the anointed appointed.
That's right. There you go.
But also, there was another, right at the end there when Miriam was put outside the camp, and then it said that the people did not set out until Miriam was readmitted.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, made me think how, when someone's put out, that we shouldn't be chasing them until they teshuvah and come back.
And that was the last one that I wrote today. Okay? Okay, 12:15, where it talks about, look, this is the part of the thing that we have a hard problem with. Miriam was put outside the camp, and they waited for her to come back. They didn't go out there and hang out with her and coddle her and all that other stuff. Okay? This happens a lot when somebody gets put out the camp. We had this in the congregation about, 6 years ago. Somebody put themselves out, stormed out of the congregation. You can't believe how many people, and after literally doing everything we just talked about wrong, attacking the leadership and complaining, and just totally out of control, wrong about everything, put themselves outside the camp, and people ran out to coddle her. It was incredible. I was just sitting there like, I couldn't believe it. You have to allow that person needs to go and feel what it feels like to be out. We have people leave on a regular enough basis. I'm not talking about people that just decide this isn't for them. I have people that leave attacking and doing the things that are not appropriate. And then some of you still hang out with them. I don't know why. That's your choice. I'm not saying that it's sin to do it. It just doesn't seem to be the right practice. If somebody is going to attack what you're doing and then go somewhere else, they're outside of that particular camp, then you're going to sit there patiently and wait for them to come back. That seems to be the more appropriate way to respond than to go out there and continue having whatever relationship you have with that. Okay, I'm not saying to be mean. Be friendly. Be welcoming. If you run into them, you can say hi and say, hey, we'd love to, any thoughts about coming back? But let's not pretend that the elephant is not in the room where there's an issue there. Okay? Now, again, I'm not talking about someone who just decided, this walk's just not for me. You guys have it. We're talking about people that left because they're attacking, causing division, and all those kind of things. And you know what I'm talking about? Because some of these people are actively contacting you to try to get you to go other places. And you should know that you should not be. I don't know how else to say it, but you should not be interacting with people that are actively trying to split this congregation or any congregation that you're part of. That's now back to the abomination of Proverbs 6. Those are trying to cause division. Okay? Okay, Nate. I know you were like jumping out of your skin to make a comment. Okay?
Sorry, Rabbi. This just occurred to me this popped in my head when you were talking about those who have left and are grumbling and complaining. Would this be considered out of verse 11, if this was an anointed, appointed place or wherever, and it came to be when the people were as complainers, it was evil in the ears of Yahweh, and Yahweh heard it, and his displeasure burned, and the fire of Yahweh burned among them and consumed those in the outskirts of the camp. Could that be considered if they're leaving, they're going to the outskirts of the camp and grumbling and complaining towards the inside?
So people running over there are going to get burned too. Yeah, that could possibly. Look, let me be clear. Anybody ever leaves, I want you to be friendly. You don't need to avoid them from that point of view. You can be friendly. You want them to want to come back. You want them to see that there's love here and that there's warmth here. But being friendly doesn't mean that you're still going to maintain the same status or relationship you had before. I can be friendly, but it doesn't mean I'm going to go to lunch with you or do all these things like we used to do when you're attacking the group that I go to. Okay, but if I see you, I don't have to have a sour puss and look all mean and whatever on my face and look like I'm angry or whatever. I can smile and say hi and say, how are you? Good, I'm glad. Listen, just so you know, we're always hoping that you'll seek to restore what has been messed up here, But that way we're not codependenting and all this other stuff and enabling these people. All right? Okay. I got a few quick because we're like already at 10 o'clock.
All right, I'll lump three together here. There's a fascination with the number 70. Is there a meaning for it? Were these 70 the leaders of thousands, hundreds, and tens? And is there a connection between the 70 men that Yeshua chose in Luke 10, 1 and 10, 17?
Yes. Look, I'm sure there's a significance to the number 70, okay? You see it in several places. And you also see in several places that 70 doesn't always mean 70. Sometimes it's 72, but it says 70. You also have that each of those things are significant, and they're sort of connected by theme. They're not connected by literalness. I mean, so Yeshua picking 70, again, it's the idea that these are the leaders, the elders that are supposed to be doing and continuing the work of Moses. And remember, Yeshua is the one like unto Moses. So Moses had 70, Yeshua had 70. Okay? It sort of makes sense. So we're not going to get heavier into the number 70, but that's a good question. We are at 10 o'clock, though, and I still have one or two things. Well, maybe not, because I think you covered. I have like one maybe more thing to do, but go ahead. Let's see what else you got.
Keep going?
Yep, real quick.
Okay. I wanted to read a thing by Shira here. She said, tragic to think that nearly all these 70 who were anointed as Moses was rebelled with the 10 faithless spies and never made it to the land.
Yep. That's rough. That's true right there.
And she also had a question, 9:12, not a bone to be broken of the Pesach lamb. Just as was true of Messiah, can you explain the significance of no bone being broken?
No. I mean, I don't have a good answer for you real quick, so no. Hold on. The significance is that they both were done the same. That was significant. That Yeshua did not have a bone broken, just like the lamb. That's significant. Why? I don't have a good answer right now, but go ahead.
Greg would like to know, could Moshe's statement in 11:22 be considered complaining?
And where?
11:22.
Well, no. He's not. This complaining is, I want. He's out there going, how is this he's just saying, I don't get it. At this point, he's having one of those moments where I don't know how this could possibly work. And of course, he's having one of those doubtful moments, which he shouldn't be doubting. Yahweh's already done all kinds of incredible things, okay? But he's also, now listen, it's not about, I'm going to take that back, everything I just said. It's not a doubtful moment. He's saying these people are insatiable. You couldn't give them enough flocks and herds to make them happy. You couldn't give them enough fish to make them happy. They just want to not be happy. He says, so what am I supposed to do? I don't think he's saying that, could we gather enough meat from everywhere around, to satisfy them, to be sufficient for them? Now, certainly this could have been one of those little doubtful moments, but it also could be, I think he's just saying, I don't think anything's going to satisfy these guys. They just there's no satisfying them. I mean, you can give them as much as, he gave them so much was coming out of their noses, and they still, it wasn't enough. They still didn't get the point. So that could be part of it. But no, I don't think it's complaining. I think it's him in his frustration trying to understand what to do next, etc. Complaining is, I need, I don't like, nah. That's a technical term at the end there. I hear that in counseling all the time. Okay, so hopefully that helped that answer. Anything else?
Does the covering of the cloud symbolize the covering of the blood of Yeshua as long as we walk in righteousness?
No. I'm going to go with no. I mean, I can see how you can connect them in a metaphor. The cloud is trying to tell you where Yahweh's presence is, okay, from that point of view. So, I mean, yes, if you're under the covering the way I described the road, then you are under Yahweh. You're in that covering of the idea. But the cloud has to do with following. It's following a leadership See, the way I describe the covering of the blood, you're on the road, you're on the path, and you're going straight, and you're walking towards the kingdom door, etc. But the idea of the cloud is you're looking for him, and as he moves, you move. And that's not what the covering of blood kind of is connected to, okay? The covering of blood is connected to a lot of other things, all right? So the cloud is more about where his presence and instruction are. So you're going to seek him and his instruction where that is. That's why you left the church and started looking for a place to go, because you realized there was no cloud there, all right? And so you started looking for, where is it? Where's the anointing and the instruction I need? Where are the answers I need, okay? And that's not what the blood covering's about. Okay.
Forgive me if you answered this one already. Rick Barry wanted to know, what is the unclean for a being in 9:10 that one could become defiled for?
That's really covered in all of the other unclean stuff that's explained in Leviticus and other places that I can't get into it now, but there's a lot of places explained. A lot of times it has to do with discharges and all kinds of things like that. Okay? Also, men have to do a lot of coming into contact with things like dead animals and other things that can make you unclean. Okay? So think of it as a phrase that might mean unclean for doing the things that men do. Okay? Because it's talking about the men. Specifically here, it's talking about the men. And so when men do the things that men do, they often find themselves unclean doing the things they're required to do as men. So it could be that aspect as well as things like discharges and all those other things that can make you unclean. Okay?
Candace would like to know, on Numbers 9:13, does it mean we're in serious trouble if we don't bring an offering to the feast, even if we don't have one?
9:13.
And then one more question after that.
Well, that offering is not talking about the same thing you're talking about. That's talking about doing the Passover offering. The offering you're thinking about is Deuteronomy 16:16, which is you give as you've been blessed. And so, everybody can give something. Okay? Even if it's a penny, you can give something. But this offering here that's talking about is the actual Passover offering. It's actually referring to the ceremony of Passover in chapter 9. So that doesn't apply today.
All righty. Last question. Nancy, how do we respond to others' complaints about our anointed appointed leader? Do we defend them?
I think the first thing you should do is ask them if they have even thought about whether or not they should be afraid to do that. Are you concerned about doing that? Do you understand that there are scriptures that really are pretty strong about, and ask them the question, look, if this man is anointed and appointed, you realize you're putting yourself in a really challenging place. Now, of course, if they don't think the person, if it's me, for example, if they don't think I am, well, then they don't think they're in that place. But that's not the point. The point isn't whether you think he is. If he happens to be, whether you think he is or not, is it worth the risk in case he is? That's more the question. And then you can defend if you want or whatever. But just, I don't need defending. None of the anointed appointed out there need defending. Yahweh doesn't need defending. Yeshua doesn't need defending. But you may want to help and warn the person, hey, I care about you. You could be putting yourself in a really bad place. Is it worth the risk? What if you're wrong and he really is appointed and anointed of Yah, and so he's someone that Yah says, this is my servant, okay? And so you're looking for people that are Yah's servants. And if you see that, well, then I'd be real careful about attacking them, okay? Okay, that it over there? All right, good. All right, so I think that covered almost everything on my list. I'm just going to add, in chapter 10 and verse 5, it does give us two of the terms for the blowing of the trumpet. It gives us the term for the shout and the term for blow. Okay, so the shout is the Torah, and the blow is the Tekiyah. So it talks about when you hear this, they shall blow for this, they shall do the shout for that. And this is part of what we do on the Feast of Trumpets, is trying to combine up these different things that would have been for the significance. It's just like in the military, you sound reveille, you sound for mess, for meals, you sound for assembling, for all the different things, you sound a certain type of call, and people hearing it know what it is. We, unfortunately, have lost contact with that pattern that they used for different things. But at least we understand that when you hear the calling out of Tekiyah, that's where the word Tekiyah is. It's the blow. when you blow the shofar, you blow the horns. The shout is truah, okay? Now, by tradition, we think of tekiah as the single blast, and the truah as 9 blasts that are broken up, like a pop, 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 pop. And the truah and the tekiah being da, something a little small note doesn't work, like a da, da, but it's really that one thing, okay? So you see that in chapter 10 and in verse 5. And when you blow a shout, and the camps lie on the east and the south, but also another place says, this is, and you should do a shout. Other times you just do a blow and you don't do a shout. Okay, so you blow the trumpets or you do the shout. You have those 2 different words there. Okay, hopefully that helped a little bit. And I think all of you did really good. You all get smiley face stickers because you get to go ahead and have everything marked off. Actually, I left out in chapter 10, which is where it says, rise up, O Yahweh. This is something that is sang in a liturgy whenever they bring the Torah scrolls out of the ark. And so we've not done a Torah service here. I do have 2 scrolls. They're paper scrolls that are machine made, but we can maybe pull them out just to demonstrate what that looks like. And then we'd have to see if your brother feels up to doing the liturgy for that. And so, but that is a key phrase there in chapter 10 and in verse 35. It said, it came to be whenever the ark was set out. In other words, that's when they would, this is why you see this in Messianic and Jewish congregations. They bring out a Torah scroll symbolic of this event. And then whenever the ark was set out, Moses, they say, rise up, O Yahweh, and let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you. And so this is, sung in a liturgical way in the synagogues, and it's beautiful. And so, and so we might just get to do that. Actually, all of you should be praying that at some point we have the funding to buy a Torah scroll. We need a Torah scroll fund, And so I know we don't ask for funds, but if you're so moved, we certainly can maybe figure out a way to put a little Torah fund thing on our website. Manny, make a note of that. We're going to put that on the new website. We have a new website coming at some point here. And so, all right. Okay, and so, we might want to fund a Torah scroll. Do I know how much they cost? The new ones cost upwards of $30,000, okay? Used ones, old ones, Holocaust scrolls, etc., could be more in the 5,000 to 7,000 or 8,000 range. All right, but you just have to make sure that you find ones that are undamaged to a certain way. We would call it kosher, that they have all the letters, all the dots, all the jots, tittles, etc., that are on a scroll. Okay, and so I would just be a little concerned with some of the older ones that are available at the lesser prices, but I certainly would have no problem getting one of those. Okay. They're just more likely to get damaged and need somebody to fix them. All right? All right. That should wrap it up. Excellent job, everyone. All right. Where's the mic? Nate. Okay. Who wants to close us in prayer? Owen. All right. Go ahead, Owen. Go ahead and close us in prayer.
Father, we thank you for your Torah. We thank you for anointed, appointed, Father. We thank you for the live stream and our brothers and sisters joining us through all around the world, Father. We pray, Father, in Yeshua's mighty name, that the words that we have heard, the words that we have spoken, they penetrate our hearts, Father, and they are as furnace in between our eyes, Father, that we might shamar, that we might hear and do, Father. Especially pray, Father, for myself, the people in this room and on the live stream, Father, that we will not be complainers, Father, that we will always be pleased, Father, with what you have given us, Father, and that we will always be satisfied, Father, that we might not sin against you, Father. We pray covering and protection over leadership, Father, over their children, their spouses, Father, and over all those whom you're calling, Father, to join and be part of this body of Messiah, Father. In his name, the name of Yeshua, we pray and we say, Amen, ve'amen.
Amen, ve'amen, amen. All right. Shalom, shalom.